This is Super Yacht News with E. Sisman. Hi, welcome back to the channel. So in April this year, I made a video where I talked about two super yachts that had been applying to get a new flag state. So obviously everyone knows a ship has a flag on the stern. The flag is of the flag state. Many yachts have what is known as a flag of convenience, usually Cayman Islands or Malta or places like this. The biggest one by far is Cayman Islands. One of the vessels that I mentioned at the time was Yacht A. So MYA had lost her flag state when she was deregistered by the Isle of Man around about April time. And this was because of the invasion of Ukraine and the sanctions that followed many of the Russians who own these super yachts. Andrei Melnichenko, the owner of MYA and Sailing Yacht A, had a problem in that, well, first of all, Sailing Yacht A was arrested in Trieste in Italy, where it still is today, and Yacht A was out in the Maldives. It disappeared off AIS, stopped broadcasting, hasn't broadcast for 3 months now, and ended up in Ras Al Khaimah. Now, Yacht A is, often mentioned in the comment section as looking like a submarine or looking like a Bond villain's yacht. And in keeping with that image, the vessel was reportedly shadowed by an Iranian warship as it sailed up to the United Arab Emirates before it docked in Ras Al Khaimah. The loss of the flag state meant that the vessel was effectively couldn't go anywhere. Now, around about the same time, the Lloyd's Register and the DNV, which are both classification societies, decided that they were going to decertify most, if not all, of Russian-owned super yachts. So the Lloyd's and DNV they're a classification society, as I said, and they inspect vessels as they're built and every 5 years, and they certify them as being up to a certain standard, right? And that's so the vessels can be insured, so they can go out and do their thing, right? These two registers that I mentioned, Lloyd's and DNV, they are the biggest registers in the world when it comes to super yachts. And being decertified by either of these, obviously each yacht will have one of these. And if they're deregistered, then it means that they are unable to sail legally. They don't have any insurance, and that's a big problem when you have a $500 million super yacht, right? The other vessel I mentioned in this video was Yacht Nord. And Nord resembles a Russian warship, or some people say it looks like an aircraft carrier. It actually does resemble a Russian warship, which we'll get into in a little bit. From memory, I think Nord was in the Seychelles, and it fled to the east coast of Russia in a place that is known as, well, it's known by me at least as the Russian Riviera. It went to Vladivostok. This vessel, Nord, is 141 meters or 464 foot long, and it was built by Lursen. It's one of the largest yachts in the world. It's over 10,000 gross tons, and this vessel has pretty much anything you could imagine a super yacht to have, and then probably quite a few things that you wouldn't imagine a super yacht to have. Here's a couple of things. It has an indoor/outdoor pool, so it can be indoor, or you can open it and extend it to be outdoor. It has 2 helicopter landing pads, one with a telescopic hangar built into it. It has a massive, what I believe is an EC-175 helicopter with a blade folding kit installed, which allows the blades to be folded by 2 people. This allows it to fit into that hangar. It has a submarine and as many water toys as you could possibly want. And it even has multiple SUVs stored ready to go on a landing craft. So the reason why I brought these two up is because they've both now apparently re-registered with new flag states. MYA, apparently, according to that Fox Business report, said that it's now flying an Emirates flag. Now, I've not been able to confirm this, and partly because MYA has not broadcast on AIS for over 3 months now. If you are in Ras Al Khaimah right now and you know it's there, be sure to take a photograph and send it to me. The other vessel, MY Yacht Nord, is now flying a Russian flag. So a few days ago, I noticed on an AIS tracking site that the MMSI number had changed. Now these are unique numbers to do with communications for a vessel, and this number had changed, and also the call sign had changed. So the call sign of a vessel is registered based on the flag state. So for instance, any flag that flies a red ensign, that's part of the red ensign group, the first letter will be a Z. And I noticed that the call sign had changed, but the flag was still showing Cayman Islands. But I did also receive a notification from Marine Traffic to say that something had changed, flag state had changed. And I think it just took a few days to propagate onto their website. And lo and behold, now it has a Russian flag flying on it. Now, why is it flying a Russian flag? Was it seized by Russia? I think that's unlikely. The most likely scenario is that the owner has decided to re-register the vessel as a Russian flag vessel. So what does this mean for MY Yacht Nord now that it's flying a Russian flag? Currently, there are many issues regarding Russian flag vessels sailing pretty much around anywhere in Europe or the UK or the US or any Western part of the world pretty much. Having said that, it doesn't really matter what flag the vessel's flying right now. If it's Russian owned, it's going to have problems sailing in those places. One of the issues that I can see going forward for Nord now is that, as far as I understand it, to have a Russian flag on your yacht, you have to have a Russian captain, you have to have a Russian chief engineer, and some other positions need to also be held by people who have Russian passports and Russian certificate of competence, which is a COC, which is what all professionals need to have on these vessels. That's one problem that I can see because the difficulties with the crew from Russia flying around or traveling around the world, because many places require Russians to have visas and some just will deny entry altogether. Another problem that I can see with having a Russian flagged vessel is Russia. Russia now have authority over that vessel, and you know, many private Russian companies that are in Russia have been seized by the Russian state. As an example, Farkad Akhmedov, the owner of MY Yacht Luna, he had a Russian oil company. He had an oil company in Russia, and that was seized. 51% of it was seized by the Russian state, or one of the Russian oil companies took it over and forced him to sell the remainders of his shares in that company. So this could now happen to those yachts. But when you look at it for what's happening in the western side, that is also happening with Russian-owned yachts. So yeah, so there are problems that I can see with having a Russian flag, but also it's kind of offset by the fact that this is the same thing that's happening because of the sanctions placed on many of the owners. If you want to see more about MY Yacht Nord, by the way, check out this website. I'll place a comment. I'll place a link in the about section. It's by HighSutton.com. He's created this web page and it tells you about Nord. He's also created this amazing graphic of like a blowout of MY Yacht Nord and all of the toys that it has on board. And he has a photograph of the yacht next to a Russian warship, an old Russian warship. There's lots of information in there, photographs of the interior, some of them that I've used here tonight. There's a lot of information on there. It's a fascinating web page and read. So be sure to check that out. He didn't ask me to do this. I just saw it and I thought it was really interesting. Okay, so let's move on. I've got two more things before I finish. The first one is a quick update on Motor Yacht Amadea. I'm not even going to do a backstory on this boat. Amadea now in control of the Americans, flying a US flag, heading away from Fiji with a US Marshals, FBI on board, and a crew hired by the US to take it back to US territory. From what I can see on AIS, it looks like, and something I said when it first left that it was a possibility, but I said it was far too early to tell. But it does now look like the vessel is heading to Hawaii. So keep checking back in with me, and I'll keep you updated until it gets to where it's going. Now, last thing before I go tonight, if you're a lover of sailing yachts, you might want to look away or go and make a coffee or something. Because in Tarragona today, if you would happen to be down at the marina in Tarragona, you might have seen this. So this is a 60-meter supply vessel reversing for some reason, and it crashed into a 45-meter schooner, Eleanor E. So there was apparently a malfunction on the supply vessel and was uncontrollable, and she hit the schooner that was docked behind. And the yacht sank shortly after the collision, as you can see in this footage here. There's no word so far on what happened. Obviously it's very early. It happened today. And I'm sure there'll be an investigation, and that yacht will need to be recovered from the bottom of the bay there. I was thinking that it's probably the first time that something's happened in the marina in the last few months that hasn't involved Motor Yacht Crescent, because this is the same marina where I was a few weeks ago filming Motor Yacht Crescent, and you can see it in the corner of some of the shots after this accident. So yeah, that's an unfortunate incident. But there were people on board, but as far as I know, nobody was hurt. So that's a good news for that story. All right, I'm going to leave it there. Thanks very much for watching. If you've got any information about any of the stories tonight or any other stories, be sure to get in touch. You can get me through the About page of my YouTube channel. You can get me through Facebook Messenger, and you can also get me through Instagram. Be sure to like this video. Be sure to hit the subscribe button there and hit the little bell so you get notified for future videos. All right, thanks very much for watching, and I'll catch up with you soon. Bye-bye.